All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us. This is Left Bank Books welcomes Missouri author and stay-at-home dad, Shannon Carpenter. We'll discuss his new book, The Ultimate Stay-at-Home Dad. Carpenter tonight will be in conversation with board president of the National AtHome Dad Network, Jonathan Heisey-Grove. Left Bank Books is St. Louis's oldest independent bookstore. We would like to thank all of our supporters, the supporters of Shannon, Jonathan, and the National At-Home Dad Network, and everyone for their outpouring of love for our bookstore. We offer in-store shopping, curbside pickup, and delivery to anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. We are happy to be able to bring our event series virtual. We believe that events are a way to expand your mind and bring in new thoughts to make the world a better place. Also, just to have some fun sometimes. We hope that you enjoy this event, and we hope that you support Left Bank Books by purchasing a signed copy for you or for your friends at left-bank.com. Purchasing a signed copy of the book from Left Bank Books allows us to keep our bookstore and staff operating, and it allows us to keep this event series going, bringing you incredible authors like our author this evening. So thank you so much for your support. I am Shane Mullen. I'm the events coordinator for Left Bank Books. I help produce our hundreds of author events each year with a fantastic team here in St. Louis. We will be taking questions from you, the audience, at the end of the events. You can type your questions as a comment, and you can do that at any point in time as you think of the question. And be sure to follow Left Bank Books on Facebook and YouTube to be notified about all of our fantastic virtual events. Now, about tonight's book, The Ultimate Stay-at-Home Dad, your essential manual for being an awesome full-time father. A practical guide for modern-day parenting geared towards stay-at-home dads, offering advice on everything from learning to cook and clean with children to dealing with mental health and relationships, with the easygoing perspective that dads can use their natural talents to parent any way that they choose. The Ultimate Stay-at-Home Dad Manual takes the best advice and wisdom from a dad's group and puts it into a format to help new stay-at-home fathers. Characterized by actionable and direct advice to fathers, the book takes on parenting from a father's point of view and encourages dads to use their natural talents to become a better parent. That advice is further bolstered by an additional 57 other dads who also give advice. All this advice is framed by the author's personal stories, which help the reader connect with the content and drives the advice home. This is a book that takes on day-to-day parenting, not just as a stay-at-home dad. Working fathers could benefit from this book as much as at-home dads. Carpenter offers practical insights and plenty of comic asides in his buoyant debut. The savvy mix of lighthearted quips and straightforward guidance will be a lifesaver for at-home fathers, and that's a review from Publishers Weekly. And the Library Journal says, a helpful and enjoyable read for the growing population of dads at home in a market saturated with books for moms. And now about our speakers. Living near Kansas City, Shannon Carpenter has been a stay-at-home dad since 2008. He is also a humor writer trained through the famous Second City. Whether writing social satire or parenting essays, he is always able to find your funny bone and leave you with a lasting impression. He has done public readings on local NPR affiliate KCUR and teaching through At-Home Dad Network and the Dad 2.0 National Conference, which named him one of the funniest dads of 2019. He has also given interviews about his experiences to Forbes, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, as well as his local NBC and Fox stations. Redbook has named him one of America's adventure dads. And finally, BuzzFeed recognized him as one of the funniest women of the week in 2020, which was weird because he is not a woman. However, he is very funny. And tonight, Shannon will be in conversation with Jonathan Heisey-Grove. Jonathan is the board president of the National At-Home Dad Network. Jonathan, an at-home dad since 2011 of two boys ages 13 and 7, Jonathan became an active member with the NAHDN after attending his first convention in 2012. He recognized a need for design of materials for the convention and has volunteered his expertise designing for the NAHDN ever since. He's been a board member since 2018, becoming president in April of 2019. He is currently a Cub Scouts den leader and secretary of a Freemasons lodge. His past experience includes president of a homeowners association, Cub master of a Cub Scout pack, and VP of fundraising for a local school PTA. And now, without further ado, if you would please help me in welcoming our fantastic guests for the evening, Shannon Carpenter and Jonathan Heisey-Grove. And if you would help me by giving them a giant round of applause. Hello.
Hello. All applause for Jonathan. That's what I'm going to do today.
All mine are for Shannon.
See how supportive dads are already? That's what you need to know. That's in the book.
That's right. Exactly.
I was applauding for myself, too. I'm not going to lie.
All right. Well, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I cannot thank you enough both to be doing this event for Left Bank Books. It is quite a pleasure.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I really am. I love St. Louis. The town and the city has so much to offer, especially for stay-at-home dads. And we've talked about the world's largest chess pieces there. You guys also have a giant weirdo statue that's coming out of the ground. I love that. And there's tons of good fun stuff. You have like not the world's biggest eyeball, but it's giant. I've seen it.
It is huge.
It is. I drug my kids. I'm like, no, you need to stay right there. We're gonna take a picture of the eyeball.
Well, and I've been a visitor of St. Louis. I did a road trip back in 2017, and one of my goals when I traveled across the country was I'm a baseball fan, and so I made it a point to find a game that I could see on my trip, and it just happened to be in St. Louis. And St. Louis baseball fans are great fans. They just love baseball. And it was clear because I showed up in my Boston gear, and it wasn't too far removed from when we beat the Cardinals in the World Series. But they were very gracious, and they were good to me. It was a great game. It's a great town, and I'd love to go back again, especially with the museum you were talking about. Oh my God.
City Museum. And I think it's strong starting off reminding them that you beat their team. That's a strong
That's
move.
True. It is. Very important.
It's a good start.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I joke around a lot. I do.
Nah, no worries. Did we lose our host?
Oh, sorry. I was turning over the conversation to you.
So. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
We can certainly do that. We can talk about the book and everything that's going on, and let Jonathan jump in there. Okay, we'll start that way. So first off, thank you everyone for coming. This is super exciting for me. Not only because I really do love St. Louis and Jonathan, obviously. He's our president.
I do.
But St. Louis has a great stay-at-home dad population. And I think right now, more than anything, I think what we've all been living through the last couple of years, I think a lot of fathers are realizing that maybe they want to be more involved with their child care. They don't, We're not there to help mom. Now Jonathan has a shirt on that says dads don't babysit. Let's start there. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's where we all come from. We don't babysit. We're not there to help mom. We are there to be dad. And I think the way we start and have that conversation is not by shaming dads, but by giving them the help and the resources that they need to become better fathers. For example, tonight I'm actually at the National AtHome Dad Conference. So there's 100 guys outside the door right now that flew from all over the country to be here to be better dads. And Jonathan, you're the president of the organization. Why don't you tell them about the National AtHome Dad org? Let's start there. That's a good one.
Thank you. So the National AtHome Dad Network we're a nonprofit, and our mission is to support families where the father is the primary caregiver of the children in the house. So that means that their spouse is able to take on the responsibility of the income of the home, and dad is there to make sure that the kids get to school, the kids are taken care of, they go to the doctor's visits, they go to the games after school. They're part of like my what Shane had mentioned in my bio there, being a part of the PTA. We're there on the ground doing all the things that for so long now has been a typical mom thing to do, and it's just dads doing it instead. And so the National at-Home Dad Network is working to bring those dads together, because one of the worst things about being an at-home dad can be the isolation and not knowing that there are other guys like us out there in the world. When I started being an at-home dad almost 10 years ago, I had no idea there were other at-home dads. I was just doing my thing. And I was lucky to run into another dad who was doing the same thing as I was. And he struck up a conversation with me. That's how I ended up going to the convention, because it just happened to be in my area that year, in DC. And I got to meet this great group of guys who were there not to just hang out and just party or whatever else what people might think. We were having breakout sessions. We were talking about dealing with grief. We were talking about dealing with being honest with your children, being truthful. You're talking about, what do you do about picky eaters? What do you do about kids who can't nap? I mean, all the struggles that any parent has with infants, toddlers, young kids, we all struggle through it. We're just finding a place where we can gather together and do that. So the National at-Home Dad Network has been instrumental in trying to bring dads from across the country, and I dare say internationally, because we have a couple of guys who have come from overseas to be a part of the convention, which, like Shannon was saying, is occurring right now in Cincinnati.
Yep.
It's an annual event. We have roughly 100 guys on average that come every year. We have great speakers, keynotes, and breakout guys, and things like that. And it's a chance for guys to connect with each other, create a community, and create some bonds, and learning from each other about how they're dealing with kids and maybe trying new things. So the bottom line, National at-Home Dad Network does advocacy, community education, and support for dads.
You know, I like what you said, because the stay-at-home dads, for you guys that don't know, we really are everywhere. We just tend to be quiet or kind of ignored. Like even in the book, I have a guy from Australia, Canada. There's the Anchorage, Alaska City Dads group. They have to deal with bears. I don't know if you guys knew that. They pretend like they pretend like it's not a big deal, and I'm like, dude, it's bears. You know,
Right.
So
Right.
you know, we really do come from all over. And I think the same story with Jonathan. I wanted to write a book that gave us practical advice. And I think that's where we're missing in the fatherhood area, is just tell me how to do stuff. Quit giving me platitudes. Quit telling me to tough it out or work it out. You know, it doesn't work like that.
No,
Whether I'm doing cooking or cleaning or mental health or finding friendships, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, you know, that crap does not work. Do not tell me those kind of things. They don't work. I need to know seriously. And as a dad, Jonathan can agree with me. What do I do when there's no changing table in the men's room? Let's just start there. Let's give some real advice. Now, this is covered in the book. Jonathan, what do you do?
Well, if I have to, I'll use the floor of the bathroom, but I don't want to do that.
It's gross, right?
It's gross. It's nasty. You don't want to be doing that.
And I love guys, but let's be honest, they pee on the floor sometimes. Everyone's had boys that get that.
It's a mess.
I know.
We know ourselves. We know what we look like when we were kids. So
I don't want to put my kid down there.
No, exactly. So what do we end up doing? We end up usually using the counter, that if it's there, if there's enough space.
If you have enough space, that's one way. The one that went viral was the dad doing it on the knees.
Thank you. I was about to say that.
Now, I've never met a stay-at-home dad that hasn't done that. Like we're all good. Like we're good at changing tables or changing kids on our knees like that, where the baby, you're sitting in the stall, the baby's on there. So that's one thing to do. And in the book, I go over that, because the other one is you've changed your kid in the back of the trunk of a car, right? I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
It is a great place to change a child because it's flat, right?
Yes.
It's fantastic. You know, they can play with the lights. I don't know, but it's really easy.
There's room.
Yes. And then go ahead. What's your other one? Where else do you do it?
Well, no, that was going to be, if I can't do it in the restaurant, if I can't do it at on the bench, because I might have to do it right there on the bench at the table, is to take my child outside and use the back seat, use the back.
Now, I've known guys that they got mad and they're like, no, I'm doing it right here in the restaurant. I'm like, dude, come on.
There are.
There are.
It's like the protest. It's like the protest to say you need to put in my stall.
I'm double-sided on that because I'm like, the poor people eating next to me didn't do anything, but I really do need to change the table. But I know guys are like, no, screw it, we're gonna do it. Yep. But even the front seat of your car, if you do it in the front seat of your car, turn the baby's head toward the back of the car, right? Because there's a slope there, and the knees and the feet naturally go up.
That's right.
There's your tip from a guy who's done that literally hundreds of times, because we've all changed thousands and thousands of diapers, right?
Yes.
But in the book, see, that's the kind of practical stuff, and that's why I'm glad Jonathan's here. The dads need to know that maybe is a little bit different. And I want to be really careful here to understand that during the pandemic, moms have carried the mental load of parenting. That's no mistake to me. Now, it's different in my spot and Jonathan's spot because we're on the other end of that. But I'm telling you, there are dads that want to be there, that are demanding to be more involved. And that's why we're going to give them some advice. So, the book is designed and easy to read chapters for dads, because every parent on here knows that you've got maybe 5 minutes in the bathroom before someone starts knocking on that door, right? So it's designed to get you those quick moments and those quick pieces of advice, right? Yeah, because you know it's going to happen. I've never met a toddler that doesn't want to be with me all day long, unless they're sneaking something, and if they're sneaking a cookie, a different story, right?
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
So even cooking, so I know Jonathan, you do the majority of cooking in your house, right?
I do, yes.
All right, real quick, what's your best recipe? Let's just spit it out there, man. Get it out there. Be immortal.
Oh, my best recipe.
Oh, you got to have one. Everyone has the best recipe. I'm asking you to brag on yourself. Brag on yourself.
I want to brag on myself, but my cooking repertoire is such a blur. I'm cooking so many different things, and diets change so often in our home that it's hard to pinpoint one. If I had to.
You do have to.
If I had to.
My book depends on it, Jonathan.
my family, my extended family, Swedish meatballs.
Oh, that's good.
Love Swedish meatballs. It's an easy thing to make. It's a gravy. You get some pasta with that, and just
good stuff.
It's hearty. I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
My favorite recipe that I make, well, let me put it back. This is the favorite one that my wife likes me to make, is sour cream enchiladas. I've made those for 10 years, and every parent will know that once you make a meal several thousand times, you never longer take measurements, right? You just a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yes.
So it's like half a bucket of sour cream and some cream cheese and jalapenos. It is totally not healthy, but it's super good. And that recipe is actually in the book, I think. As well as I actually put other recipes from other dads. And that's what I love about my book now, is I interviewed 57 dads that actually made it in the book. I actually interviewed closer to 100, and there just wasn't space for all those guys.
Yeah.
But those guys gave their best pieces of advice. And some of those are their best recipes. There's a pesto recipe that I've tried that's really good. There's a vegan taco recipe in there that I love. They had no idea how to do that. And I think, again, we're getting back to how to help dads and what advice can we give them. So let's give some cooking advice too. So the hardest thing, I think, the day-to-day grind is tough for me, right?
Yes.
Is it tough for you, especially when they're toddlers, right?
Absolutely.
So you're cooking, you're cleaning, and everything, right? Let's start with cooking.
Right.
And here's the question I get asked: how do I cook with a baby on my hip and a toddler trying to punch me? Because they attack when you don't expect them, like a cat, right? So how do you handle that? What do you do?
Well, first off is, you got to use the one leg method. You got to push one kid out of the way. That's one. Two, you have to be, you're almost like an acrobat, right?
Yeah.
You are trying to juggle and trying to mix and stir and cook and flip while you're standing there with a child. And you become very adept at balance and trying to, and really, for a toddler, I think all parents understand this. All you need is one easy distraction to completely change their direction.
Yes.
It's all you need. So if you I don't know what, go find your fuzzy bear and show me where he's ticklish. Just as a weird example, right?
Yeah.
They'll run off and they'll do that and they'll start to show you, and you have released yourself from the physical attachment.
Yes.
And now you have just the visual attachment. They're trying to get your attention. So you've got to find a way to give them attention without them being physically on you to be able to do the work that you're doing.
It would. Now you got to be careful, because if they grab a knife, things are going to get serious.
Yes.
Don't let them get a knife. Don't. That's my advice. No knives for toddlers.
Knives and things, they go back towards the back of the counter.
So I think for me, when we cook, and I have all this in the book, but there's one pot meals. Every mom knows about the casserole. Throw a bunch of cheese on that thing. But we have other things that make things easier. And I think for dads, we got a little bit of extra there. So, the Instapot, the air fryer, the crock pot. And they're great recipes that get your hands free to move around. And that's a big deal. Now the dad, and what, moms too, I don't want to separate here. I hate separating the mom and dad thing, but smokers and grills, you can smoke a piece of meat for 12 hours, check on it, and still parent. And you can get some just gorgeous, beautiful stuff, or even some cheese. Oh, I have a buddy named Larry that makes great smoked cheese. Like, it's good.
Nice.
I know.
Nice.
I need to call Larry.
And to that point, right? This is a lot of this is just planning. You have to be able to plan ahead and know what it is that you want to eat and what you want to do.
Yeah.
And that way you can do something like a Instapot, or you can do something that's a slow cook, because if you've planned enough ahead, you can set that up, get it going, and then you can do all your other stuff and not be so stressed out when
it is. And it also helps the budget. It does. It helps the budget when you plan weekly meals, 7 days, and it can be a pain in the rear, but it does help the budget, and it helps you shop specials. Because as an at-home parent, you're always looking at that bottom line and that money, and where can I save money?
And one of the things that in our household, the planning of meals and the cooking of meals is a shared responsibility. So my wife is often the one that puts together a week's menu, and then she'll write up a shopping list, and then I can go through the shopping list and know what we do need and what we don't need, what we already have, what I can cross off before I ever go to the store. And that way we're working together to plan out what everybody's going to eat. And there isn't a question as to, what are we going to do tonight for dinner? Because too often, and we've had it happen to us, where we get into a cycle where we can't plan enough ahead. And then we get into those ruts of having to, let's eat out.
Just hustle.
Just deliver something.
Which is not as healthy for you, because you got to watch out your line. And I think you nailed it there. The planned shared responsibility. That was good.
There's a lot of discussion, at least I think, about co-parenting and equal parenting. That comes out of there was a study done about 3 years ago by this group called Promundo, and they did a worldwide survey of dads, and they found that the majority, I think it was like 80% of dads, wanted to be more actively involved in the care and the everyday of their kids, which is just amazing when you consider that 10 years ago I don't think anybody would have found somebody that there were enough dads that wanted to be in that position. And it's just that shift and change is the kind of pendulum swing to say, guys, here's the way to do it. Plan with your spouse, be a part of the everyday.
Now we got a question that I think this is a big question. How do you sneak veggies and get them to eat healthier? So I actually have some answers for this one. And this actually comes from the book. So number one, let your kids help cook, right? If they take ownership of that, they're more likely to eat it. So for the toddlers, you can actually get a finger guard from Amazon, right?
Yeah.
So they won't chop their fingers, but they can actually chop some of those vegetables, right? My next advice is you sneak the veggies into things they already like maybe a quesadilla, right? You throw that spinach and different things that you want. You throw it into the food processor a little bit, just get it going, right? And they'll never know. I've done tons of that. Now, some of it, And I'll tell you what I did personally in my house that worked. I set up a game that each food was worth a certain amount of points, right?
Oh,
And I said, like,
yes.
broccoli's 5 and Brussels sprouts is 50 because I'm not even going to cook them. If you want to go cook them, you get 50 points, right? I don't like Brussels sprouts. And meat was like 1, And so
Yeah.
that was one of the ways that I encouraged my kids to do it. And at the end, there would be some sort of prize. And I was trying to do positive feedback where eating was an enjoying thing and not
Yeah.
something that you were shamed into. So how do you get your kids to eat vegetables? How do you do it?
Well, kind of like you mix it in without them knowing what it is. So, um, one of the things that we do is we'll often add things to like muffins. So
Yes.
we'll do zucchini in muffins. It, it's a vegetable that doesn't put off a lot of flavor, but it gives you that nutritional punch. And
It does.
you don't tell a kid it's in it, and they devour down a chocolate muffin that
Yes.
was made partially out of zucchini. I mean, great.
Yeah. Because you got to
Carrots.
watch it with the younger kids. I agree. The texture is going to throw them out, like mushrooms.
Yes.
My kids
Yes.
can't stand mushrooms, but if I dice it and they have no idea and I don't tell them, then they like the other stuff that I make. I think that's a good question.
That's right.
Now, I want to get to cleaning a little bit because everyone loves cleaning
Oh.
hacks. Now, like I said, I have a whole chapter on cleaning with kids because I've heard it said that cleaning with kids is like brushing your teeth while eating Oreos, right? And you're like, yeah, it's totally it.
Pretty much.
So I advise that, and one of the guys in my book too, they advise that you give the kid ownership of an area as soon as you can. Now, it doesn't help them when they're 1 year old, right? So
Right.
you got any good tips for cleaning with kids? How to make that happen?
Well, usually we will say, like, if you want, because our kids are kind of, they want their rooms to be a certain way. So
Yeah.
we will say, okay, if you want it that way, you've got to help clean because I
Yeah.
can't do it alone. So here's a duster. If dust all the shelves in your room.
Yep.
That gives them ownership of something to do.
Yep.
That makes them feel like they have accomplished something that is part
Yes.
of the ritual of cleaning.
And that's important that they accomplish something. So for me, and this is a straight dad tip, right? 2 things. 1, get a long-handled dustpan because that's just smart to save your back. You're running a restaurant. Let's not
Yeah.
It's true. And
Yeah.
number 2, and I swear to God, it's not a joke. I know it sounds like one, a wet dry back in your kitchen.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
When they're 1-year-old kid, they love putting stuff inside of a wet dry bag. And everyone's had them when they dumped out all the Cheerios, or they throw spaghetti on the walls. You say, okay, go get the wet dry bag. My daughter was a year old doing that. And I know it sounds goofy, but trust me, it works. It's a real thing. And it soak up everything. And Jonathan just had
my
smack
son
there.
just fell down the stairs.
You want to go check on him? I
feel
got
bad.
this.
No, my wife is out there helping him out too.
See,
Co-parenting.
that is parenting right there.
Co-parenting.
Let's talk about first aid and parenting now.
So you said the wet dry. It made me
Yeah.
immediately think of my Swiffer wet mop. Like,
Yeah.
if you have something that's simple and easy to be able to manage a quick cleanup, it's going to be a lot easier than if you are relying on a full mop and a bucket and all the slop.
Agree. And my general advice is clean top down, right? Start upstairs
Yes,
or dust
always.
clean top down, and have your spaces.
When I vacuum, I do that. I start at the top and I work my way down.
Yes, and don't feel bad if you got to put a baby in baby jail. If you got to put them in the crib or because you got to have times free. And I think one of the pieces of advice that every parent gets is do it while they sleep, right? But that's the advice for everything. So for a dad, that means clean, mow yard, do stuff. Like you don't have time to do all. I mean, how long are your naps, man? At my best, I could get them going for 3 hours, and that's if I wore them out, right? So you got to find ways to do it with them. So
yeah, I don't think my kids ever slept past 2 hours for a nap. So that's like the golden time of the day. It's the golden 2 hours where you can get something practically done because those are the times where you can really deep clean something, where you can do dishes, where you can do the things where you can't pull away so easily.
Yes.
And take care of it. Just like mowing the lawn. I mean, you really need to be able to get outside uninterrupted for a couple of hours to do some of that.
I called it the popsicle mow. This is straight from me. I gave my kids a popsicle, and I had to finish by the time they ate it. I could do the front yard that way. The backyard was dicey, and it's probably a little too fast. But I got my workout in. But that's what I call my
So see,
popsicle ball.
incentives work both ways.
Yes, they do.
That's what you're saying. That's what you're saying. It's just incentivizing.
They do.
Parenting is about incentivizing.
It kind of is. So one of the things I definitely wanted to get to tonight, and thank you everyone for coming and listening to me and Jonathan just kind of have fun here, is the mental health section of my book and of Dad's. And I'm going to crack a ton of jokes because mental health makes me uncomfortable, and that's okay because that's just the truth of it, you know. And in the book, I had to write it very clean and very plain and very honest, and that's a very hard thing for me to do because Jonathan mentioned it at the beginning, is the isolation of a dad, and I'm not talking just stay-at-home father. Can be extreme, you know, and we're taught to be stoic, and we're taught that John Wayne never cried, and that's bullcrap because he did. You know, we're taught that we are not allowed to feel things, that you can't have anxiety, that you need to walk that off, or depression, or any of the other things, and that's just a load of crap. That just is. Agreed, Jonathan?
Agreed. Absolutely.
Yeah. So go ahead, bud.
I was about to say one of the things that we as an organization and at the convention do is we take mental health very seriously. We focus on that, and every year at the convention we have a space for, and we call it a mental health breakout.
Yeah.
But it is a chance for the guys who are really struggling to share their stories and feel support. And it has been such a life changer for so many different guys to be able to have that support that they didn't have and they don't have at home. It takes a village to help some of these guys.
And that's what I want to mention here, and that's why I brought it up. If no one gets anything out here, I mean, I do hope you buy my book. I got a kid just in school. I get it. But the truth is, I just want to help the next generation of guys. And the biggest changeover for me, period, was that I found a tribe to do this with. And I found it. So this is what I want everyone to remember. And this is in the book. Either join a dad's group or start your own dad's group. You can go to City Dads Groups. They started up in New York, and now they run 41 different dads groups through the country. They help support those dad groups. They can tell you exactly how to start one. The National AtHome Dad Org is a great place to find that support. Like I said, I have 100 friends out there right now that are cheering me on and probably going to make fun of us for later for this, you know. But that helps your mental health support so much. And there's so many things like that people don't know about. Like City Dads Groups does an amazing job with connecting fathers, and National Home Dad does an amazing job of getting us together and talking about these big issues, and those were lifesavers for me. So my first convention was in 2009, and now this is what, 13 years, 12 years, right? And I'm kind of
that's right.
And isolation can kill you, and not kill you, that sounds bad, but it can be really hard to get out of there. Like anxiety is a real thing as a parent. Everyone knows that, right? And you have to find ways to share that load, you know?
Absolutely. And for other guys to know that they aren't alone when they're having anxiety issues, when they're having trouble coping with a situation. The fact that we live currently in a time where we can instantly connect with somebody across the country is a big improvement for some of the guys. You know, the convention that you're at now, it's its 25th anniversary. And so back in 1995, there was just a small group of guys that got together to do with a researcher to talk about what they were doing. And now it's blossomed into something this big where guys are connecting on a daily basis. I have friends that they're pinging me as I'm talking, that are from across the country that I've met from hither and yon, as a result of being connected virtually, but also as a result of the organization and the convention, and to be able to reach out and talk to somebody and share their concerns and their worries and not feel judged by it. That's a big leap and a big
It is. And that's how you protect your mental health. And since we're giving advice, that's important here, you know. There are things that you do like getting out every day, you know. Even if it's a grocery store trip counts as an adventure, right? And I do a whole adventure chapter later. But exercise, counts, right?
Yes.
Sharing those loads with
Absolutely.
your friends counts. Eating healthy, sleeping, all those things can do it. And I think a stay-at-home dad is kind of susceptible to a lot of those other things because that isolation seems a little bit harder at times.
Sure.
I also want to
Absolutely.
give a shout out to Movember. They run
Yes.
they advocate for men's mental health, and they do a special thing in November where everyone grows their mustache out, and that's really cool. And we get to be
Yes.
pirates for a day with big wacky
That's
mustaches.
right.
But again, I think in the book that is one of the most proud things I did that I wrote, because it took me 6 tries to write that first part of that chapter, because
I'm
it was
sure.
so uncomfortable for me to write it. But if I wasn't honest, I wasn't going to help anybody. And I remember, and I've told this story a lot, but my editor, Elda, hi Elda, she said, you're going to help someone. And that's all I needed to hear. And then everything
Yeah.
just fell away. Because I've seen those guys that have come to my group, because I'm part of City Dads, KC Dads group,
Yeah.
that needed that help, that you could tell were just hurting on the inside, and sometimes you don't even
Yeah.
know it, and so that's why I write.
As long as you have the ability to transform one person's life
Yes.
in a positive way, that's accomplishing something. And through your book and through the work that we do, we hope that we can affect guys in a positive way and make them feel more secure about being a at-home parent and being a primary caregiver, because it's not easy. It is daily. It is not easy. Just not.
And I want to say this again: you're not helping, you're not babysitting, you're parenting, you're being a father.
That's right.
And if you're thinking about being a stay-at-home dad, or just want to be a more active, involved dad, the very first advice that all of us give: take ownership. You're not asking for permission.
Right.
I don't need your acceptance. This is my kid. I got this. Back up and see if you can keep up. That's always been my motto. And I know I get kind of pissy with that one, but man, oh man, that gets to me so bad. It does.
Well, and at the same time, right, you want to have the support of your spouse. And,
yes.
And to any of the listeners who are a spouse of a dad, give them encouragement, give them support, give them the ability to take on the responsibility and support them in that endeavor, because it is going to be helpful for yourself as well as for your spouse, as well as for your husband and for your family.
And you know what? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, John.
When you show that you are working together as a team, and your kids see that. Your kids see virtually everything, whether you like it or not. And the more that you are working together and collaborating together in partnership with each other, the stronger the bond will be with your kids.
And you've got to build that trust. And I'm going to tell you some truth here, because I've heard on the other side, oh my God, what's going to happen if dad takes care of the baby? Let me tell you this: if dad can change a diaper, if he can change a tire, he can change a diaper. It's just that simple. It's not rocket science. Every parent out there is the first blowout you get, and you're like, oh, I need to get better at that, right? Like that's a thing,
Right.
Because I think for dads, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish.
No, I think for dads here, be assertive. Don't let someone preempt your role. Embrace it. Own it. Get in there, man. Because you're not, and I've said this before, you're not the comedic side character of your child's story. You are the hero. Be that guy. Yes, my book will help you get there, but there's tons of other places and dads out there just like that can get you there. Be that hero, man. You got this. Exactly.
And what we're talking about reminds me of a question that I got last year when I was interviewed for a radio broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
The interviewer asked me, so what does an at-home dad do?
Yeah.
And I just said, what does an at-home mom do? I mean, really, what does a mom do?
You know what?
It's just the same thing.
I'm going to tell you how I answered that question and how
please.
It got me to a different level of parenting. So I was asked, and this is in the book, I was asked, what do you do? And I joke, right? I'm like, we make cannons and, things like that. And truth of it is, I do make medieval siege weapons with my kids because building trebuchets and ballistas are fun. But then I accidentally said, I was just feeling goofy that day. And I said, oh, see things like the world's largest ball of twine. Like that came out of my mouth. And the lady I was talking to, she's like, oh, you've seen that? And I was like, that's a real thing? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, where the hell is that? And she's like, that's in Gawker City, Kansas. And I was like, I am going to do that. You know, so
Yeah.
that trip, I gathered my dads, off we went. That was 12 years ago. We've done a dad's trip every time since then. And we've gone to the weirdest stuff, like the world's biggest pair of underwear is in St. Louis. It is St. Louis. Hats off to you. The world's biggest pair of overalls, that's in Nebraska, right?
All right.
Along with the
Okay.
biggest, world's largest ball of stamps is in Nebraska. But that question opened up the door for me as a dad, right?
That sounds like a dryer that got spilled out onto the floor. You got a roll of stamps and a pair of overalls and a pair of underwear. They're just kind of scattered across the Midwest.
Yeah, and as we're going through this for the audience that's there, and I know we're having a good time, if we're not covering something you got a question, please ask us. Between Jonathan and I, we've got like 25 years experience doing this. And I think, the things, and we joke here, and we've been through the hardships too, those lonely days where you're disasters. Oh, let's do that. What's your biggest disaster? Let's throw that out there. What you got, Jonathan?
Oh, what was the biggest disaster? My son and I both got really ill, and we spent like days in this like bubble of disease. And it was awful. It was just so awful.
Well, that's the thing, because you don't, as a stay-at-home parent, everyone's like, yeah, you get zero kind of like break, right? There is no sick days.
Exactly. You're not only caring for yourself, you're caring for an infant or a toddler who cannot care for themselves in that way. So it's double duty.
It is double duty. And if your spouse is on a trip, what you gonna do?
Right.
I passed a kidney stone like that. It hurt so bad. What was I going to do? I was like, oh, I know. I clawed the bathroom wall, and then I got done. I was like, okay, give me 10 minutes. I can help you now. I really think some of the bigger disasters we've had, and I like telling this story because it's a very dad story, but we live behind, there's some woods behind us, and I have a cat, and it's an outdoor cat. And so we have these baby bunnies, and, cats do what cats do. And he brought a bunny to me one morning, and it was not doing well. It was just not good. So you got to do what you got to do as a dad, right? And my kids were 3 and 4 at the time. So I took my shovel, which has a sharpened end, and I just kind of, and I had to put it out of misery, because that's what you have to do. Yes. And I turned around, and my 2 kids are watching me, and I was like, oh my God. They just saw their dad kill a baby bunny. And my son is sitting there in his diaper with his toast of judgment eating at me, looking at him. I'm like, oh no, this is like the worst thing ever. And I remember thinking, well, that was a good run. Now they're going to have issues. Yeah. And so my daughter, who was like 4 at the time, she came out and she said, did the hawk get the bunny? We have a hawk in the neighborhood. And I was like, yes. And I did lie. Because also I was afraid what they would do to the cat, because my daughter at the time was pretty rough, so I was like, protect the cat. But, it was that accidental adventure that got us to a point where we can have some really hard conversations, or introduce those hard conversations. Yes. In this case, death. And we ended up getting dressed up and having a full-on backyard funeral for the bunny in a shoebox. And my daughter had a little parasol, umbrella. It was actually super cute. And we talked about that, about death and life and things like that. And awesome. I think in the book, I try to make the point that sometimes your disasters become your greatest moments. You just have to wait for them. I was once told, risk ambitious failure. And that's what I try to live by.
In my first ever convention, one of the things that has resonated with me from way back then was the very same advice, which had to do with if you have a parent that has died, or if you have a relative that has died and your child asks about it, tell them that they died. Don't tell them some fantastical thing. Don't lie to them and tell them, oh, they went off to see blah, 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 right? You just give them the hard truth, because it is easier to tell the truth than to make up a lie that just starts to... Yes. Because it only goes bad after that.
It does. Now, I know I told a story that makes me look extremely good, which is why I write. So let me tell you one that takes really bad. And just real quick before we get to questions, I once took, it was called Spook Cave. You had to get in a bass boat to do it. There were 6 dads and all our kids in this one little bass boat, and it was like an inch from the water.
Oh.
Totally wrong decision. That's on me. And you had to lay down because the cave was only like this much space for like 100 yards.
Uh-huh.
And I had a 1-year-old with me, and that did not end well. So my next advice is make sure you read their websites before you go adventure. There we go. We can get to questions now, Shane. I know that we're kind of on time, but that was fun.
Yeah.
I could do this all day. I could talk about dad stuff all day.
Because you're good at it. So
thank you. Did you just hear the Spook Cave story? That did not sound good.
So I want to encourage the audience watching to type out questions. We don't have any questions yet from the audience, but I have a couple of my own.
Okay.
So I work with several dads that they work quite a bit. And since this is a guide not just for stay-at-home dads, but dads of all varieties, what is the best advice for getting the most out of maybe a limited amount of time that they get to spend with their kids?
Oh, I've got one for this one. You want to go first, Johnny?
I got one.
All right,
the first one is put your phone away and actually spend time focused on your kids. Forget about everything else. The email can wait. The sending off a file can wait. When you're at home, enjoy the moment and embrace what your kids are doing. Don't guide them into what you want to do. Let your kids guide you.
Yeah.
Because your kids will guide you where they want to go.
I do think that's a good answer. It's be present, be active. And for me, I would take it one step further. Don't box yourself into thinking that you only have to do the parenting stuff that is expected. Go find the stuff that you want to do. A Civil War battlefield is just about a giant field. Kids love fields, you know?
Yes.
Take tours of places that you want to go to. We took them to a tour of a coffee factory, and it turns out my 3-year-old at the time hates coffee, but I liked it, so it was fun, you know. And so incorporate them into that part of your time. You don't have to go to the mall playground or the park every time. Take them to things that spark your imagination. And I think that is how you get to be present and get that quality time that matters. It does, because whether you work or stay home, you know, in the stay-at-home dad world, here's the truth: we don't care. We're just there to be dad. It doesn't matter to us at all.
Right.
So you've talked a little bit about mental health, and I think one thing that I'm first off, let me be very clear: I am not a parent, so I have a dad. That is my experience. But my brother is he has 3 kids. My sister has 2. So I get to see my fair share of parenting happening, and I always wonder, like, how, like, when you're dealing with kids and when you have like that kind of trigger moment of like, how do you get away from, like, how do you distance yourself when you are just as, like, when you are the only one there? How do you get away to get that anger out so that your kids don't get the brunt of it?
Oh man, that's just a life question. But you know what?
It also applies to work.
It does. Dads have a lot of experience in it. Jonathan, you go first. I got an answer on this one too. What do you do?
So, well, one of the things that I have learned to do, so like you said, my kids are older. So I've had a little bit of experience in starting to deal with something like this. I know, and we talked about honesty earlier. I say, stop. I'm not doing this right now. I cannot. I'm going to go. Especially with my older son, I'll say, we're not having this conversation right now. I'm leaving. And I let the conversation is dead and I walk away. And that way I can turn off the angst and the anger that's starting to build, and I can have a rational conversation later. I won't let it die.
Yeah. But it's harder when they're younger, when they're toddlers, because for me, that's when it hit the most, because they can't understand, right? They can't understand that you're getting to your breaking point. And I was told at the convention years ago that when you parent, you're up and down a lot, right? Highs and lows. And you need to try to hit that medium as much as you can. Not that you can always do it. And I think that seems kind of like not very practical advice. So I have practical advice, which is the entire book. Put yourself in timeout. Toddlers on their side in timeout. And it's okay to put yourself in timeout. And honestly, I told my kids, Dad's going to timeout. And I would go sit to my little timeout chair. And sometimes it's funny, but it gave me that necessary few minutes I needed to collect myself and realize, because I think what anger does is it makes me unreasonable. and I don't approach it as a problem. I approach it as a conflict. And those are two very separate things for me. Not something to be solved, but something to be fought. And you cannot do that with a toddler. You cannot argue with a toddler. So
No.
what I do for me, timeout. And now that my kids are older, I do a lot what John says, like, okay, dad's needs timeout. But I also take the time to know when I've been wrong, and I apologize if I've been there, if I've let it get the better of me.
Thank you. Yes.
Jonathan likes that idea. Thank you. That's why I wrote the book.
Well, and that is something that I had to learn to do myself. It is instinctual to not give in. And
yes,
as you were talking about, you don't want to give in. You don't want
No.
to cede ground to your kids, of all things, the kids.
Yeah.
And if you have enough self-awareness and you really listen to yourself and you think about the conversations you're having, you can recognize where you are actually at fault, and you
Yes.
come back to them and you tell them, I'm sorry, I
Yep, I
shouldn't
screwed
have
up.
said
That's
this,
on me.
or I shouldn't have done that. And I will be better at that, and I'm working at it. I mean, that's something I tell my kids all the time.
I have a 15-year-old and a 14-year-old now, and an 8-year-old. And the times that I've done that, and I've done that in the last year, especially during the pandemic, like shit got
Mhm.
hard and weird. I teachers out watching this, my hands off to you. I suck. I know I sucked at teaching. It's not my
We salute
thing.
you. We
You
salute
know?
you.
I can't do quadratic equations on one thing and then go build cardboard flip-flops the next time, right? That's what I was doing. But
Yeah.
there were
Yeah.
times that I pulled my daughter aside and was like, I was wrong. I lost my temper. You were actually right. And to my shock and amazement, my 15-year-old daughter says, that's okay, Dad. And she gives me a hug and we talk about it. And I'm like, you can rub that in. I expect you to rub that in because she does everything
Yeah,
else.
Right.
She'll wake up in the morning. It's like, hey, Dad, you're bald. Like, that's her thing, right? It's like, hey, Dad, you dress in cargo shorts. And I'm like, I don't even know why that's an insult. But,
Right.
when it comes to that, she's very just like, okay, now we're going to talk. And we've actually been able to work things out. And I do the same thing with my son, the very same way. And surprisingly, they cut me slack. Now, when they were toddlers, let's be honest, they were a little bit jerks. It's true. They cut me zero slack.
All toddlers are jerks. Let's put it out there. They are all jerks.
And let's go back to our callback. If they get a knife, they're even bigger jerks, right? We
That's
talked about
right.
that cooking.
Absolutely. I've heard stories. And to your point, though, that you are trying to, you are being a model for how they can act and respond to situations. And if you go over the top with your kids, they're going to learn that, and they're going to do that themselves.
Yes.
I learned the hard way that my temper and my anger spilled over to my oldest when he was a toddler. And so his way of reacting to things is as explosive as when I was younger, when I was even an adult. Even as an adult, I would have explosive anger. And so when I saw that in him, I knew that I had to change something about me and the way that I responded and reacted to situations. And then to teach him that it's not okay to do that, that you have teaching moments, you have learning moments for yourself. We are always learning as individuals, as human beings. You never stop learning.
Yeah.
And to learn that you can change your behavior and then pass that along to your kids and show them by example is so crucial and so critical. And
that's a brilliant answer. Yeah.
And when you said that your daughter came to you and hugged you and said thank you, that is a sign that you are being an effective parent, and what you're doing is effective because they have learned empathy and they are learning to accept apologies, and it can work in reverse.
Yeah. So, unless she's holding on to it for later, which
is possible.
She's got a little back. I think
they
you're right.
Never forget.
What I say in the book is you are the example of masculinity that your kids will look to. No one else gets to be that example. And how you treat people, including them, matters. But how you treat a server, how do you treat people that help you out? How do you treat them? How do you treat your spouse? Take those into account, and a little bit of kindness goes a hell of a long way. you know?
Yes.
And all you have to do is smile and be nice and help a person out, and they will learn that, and that will come through. One of the questions we ask every day at supper time is, what was your best part of your day? What was the hardest part of your day? But what is something kind you did for somebody today? And that's one of those things at dinner time to keep the conversation going, but also kind of focusing on what we think that matters. We're sharing the load, but we're actually going to help our community as well. Sorry, I could ramble. I could go on forever on this.
I think we all can, because we all share those kinds of experiences as dads. So
I think so.
Michelle says, "I'm not a dad, but I'm so gonna buy and read this book. Thanks, Shannon, for writing it. It has great info for life in general," and I agree.
And Michelle, I will tell you this: there's a section in there for the moms about how to deal with your husbands. That sounds terrible. How to support your husbands in their parenting. And it's from 5 working moms that are married to stay-at-home dads, but they give their advice to moms on how to support your husband, and it's really good stuff.
That's excellent.
That's a good plug, though, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I think I have one final question. Okay. 2 of my friends are brand new parents, like very, very tiny baby. And they are first-time parents. So I'm wondering, what is the best piece of advice that you have for a trepidatious first-time parent that is like, what do I do?
That's the biggest question. What do you do? Jonathan, you want to handle that one? Or you want me to go first?
Share sleep. Share sleep. You got to plan your sleep. You've got to share it. If you're swap, you've got to give each other the time to rest, because when you're on, you are on, and you can get wiped out quickly. So work together to plan your sleep. That would be the first thing that comes to mind. Shannon, what about you?
I have a lot of advice for new parents, because I've been there. And I think you got to realize, as a dad, I realized the cavalry isn't coming, because that's you. Like, you're there, right? I tell dads, brand new dads, I say, take the 3 a.m. feeding by yourself, right? And I say that because sink or swim, that's you. You're going to be tired, yes, but you get to do things your way, and you gain the confidence. And that's really what you're after. You will learn how to change that diaper, make that bottle, get them in that swaller. You'll take care of that in a week or 2, right? And then throw in your best episode of Star Trek, because that's what I did. I don't like a Trek. I watched all of them with all 3 of my kids. And then you get that alone time where no one is trying to do that. And I think the other part of advice I would give new parents, besides that actual practical one, is you're better than you think you are. Everyone is jacked up when they first start. No one knows what the hell they're doing. Even if they say they know what they're doing, they don't know what they're doing when they start. Things happen. Embrace those failures, learn from them, and get out of the house as much as you can. Take your kiddo with you. Even if it's just to the park, it makes a difference on your mental health.
Absolutely. One of the things that I found with our second child, because our first child we had while my wife and I were full-time working. And so the second child was the one where I was on duty the whole time. And you talk about walks. I went on so many walks.
Oh, yeah.
I visited the library so many times.
Oh, we need to throw out the library. Yes, absolutely. Go to the library. Get to know the children's librarian. That's a big deal, man.
Yes.
She will take care of you. Like, seriously.
I would go for walks almost on a daily basis. I'd go walk at the local library is like 1.5 miles from my home. So, a good 3 miles round trip, but go in, it's quiet. So it doesn't disrupt your child if your child is sleeping, because, and if you time it right, you get your nap in while you're going out on your walk, because they will sleep in that stroller.
Now, I do want to say, you're going to ask me about the art of transferring a sleeping baby from the car to the nap, right? Yes. And I'm going to tell you what the secret is. There is none. You can't do it. Give it up. That's the secret. Never works. You're 50-50. We've been doing it a long time. You're like, crap. So if you need to sit in your driveway for an hour, that's cool.
With the car running. Yep.
Get everybody in the main seat. There you go. Take your time when you can get it.
There you go.
All right. Well, I want to thank you both so much for all of this incredible advice. If you are not a parent like me, give this book to parents. Like, I will be buying a copy for my friends who are brand new parents, because even though they might not encounter some of these situations for like a little while, they will be more at ease knowing that they are not alone, that they are dealing with the same things that all parents deal with. So yeah, this advice is incredible, and thank you both so much for your time.
Came from a lot of different fathers. There's 57 other dads in the book, so there was a reason,
including me.
Yes. Now I'm actually cheering for you, Jonathan. That's for real.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Shane, thank you guys, and thank you Left Bank Books for giving me the opportunity. It's just a fantastic thing to do. Thank you.
Yeah, Shane and Left Bank Books, thank you for allowing me to sit in with Shannon and share our experiences and our knowledge.
Yeah. And Shannon, anytime you're in St. Louis or
I'm coming,
Jonathan, like come visit us. Like we would love to see you.
You know what, Shane? I'm going to take you to see the underwear now. It's a thing. We got to go do it.
I had no idea that was in St. Louis. No idea.
It is. It's there. I'll show you where.
All right. Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
All right. To the audience, thank you so much. We hope to see you again really soon.
Bye to my kids.